Look, you've been in the industry for a long time.
That's true.
You've seen the shift, the change in the industry to somewhat sanity, right? To batshit insane, right? I've always said that like the video game industry was the first to adopt the nonsense. It'll be the last to let it go, right? It's filled with all these creatives and they all have crazy hair and they all have bull rings in their nose and stuff. And,
By the way, before we got on today, I took my ring out of my nose because I
we
thought, well,
appreciate you. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for that, Marty. That's
Thank you
good.
for applying the dress code.
That's right. But did you see a shift? Like, was there a day, and we may have talked about this previously, but was there like a moment where you're like, what the hell is happening right here?
Well, it actually, and this, I think we did talk about this. It happened during Halo 2, where we had to change the name of the Dervish, and we had to change it to the Arbiter. And it was a late in the process change, and it just killed half of us because of the work that it put on us. So the Arbiter was going to be called the Dervish, and it was changed. The corporate heads came down because of somebody who had said this was going to insult the Muslim community, because there is this thing called the whirling dervish in Turkey, I believe, which is a part of a religious sect. And I mean, I could totally understand why we don't want to insult someone's religion. But it's just that Microsoft knew about the name of this character, and we got them to approve it, a year and a half earlier. And we kept asking, is this still approved? And they said yes. And so we went ahead and recorded everything. I recorded all the actors saying that's this name. And then at the last minute, they're like, you have to change it. Now, what that made me realize is that corporations can yield to perceived public pressure, that it wasn't there yet. And that's the only thing I saw. It wasn't necessarily a woke thing, but what I saw was that these corporations could bully the developers into changing their content or modifying their content based on outside perceived political correct pressures. And I thought, okay, that's not a good move. Like, that's the kind of thing that could lead to other things, let's say like woke philosophy and checking off boxes for quote unquote diversity, rather than this is a character driven change, or the story says we need these kinds of characters. Instead, it's like, no, the perceived public pressure is you need this number of this race and this number of this ethnicity, and you can't say these kinds of things. And suddenly I could see that down the road, the game developers were going to be pressured by publishers because of external perceived political correctness.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
The name Dervish that you guys gave him, at any point during development were you like, this is really going to piss off a lot of people? Meaning, were you trying to offend people? Because, or was this just a preemptive thing where somebody somewhere may potentially be upset because his name is Dervish?
Well, I never even thought twice about it. It was in this, I think Joe and Jason chose the name Dervish at some point, or maybe Rob McLeese said Dervish is cool, let's call him a Dervish. We just thought it was a cool thing, a cool name. It had no religious significance other than we knew the Covenant was this group of sort of religious zealot fanatics, and they believed a heresy that, wasn't true. And the idea of a dervish being this special person that, was sacrificing himself to fight the humans, that just seemed cool. That's all that was. There was I don't think any of us even thought that or knew the origin of that name. So that's on us. We could have probably looked into it more closely. We sent it to Microsoft, the powers that be, and saying, here's our script, here's the names of our characters. Is this going to be all okay? And that's at pre-production. Now, pre-production is when you can make big global changes without costing a lot of money and time and effort, because you're not in production. So you want that stuff signed off on in pre-production, so you don't have to make huge shifts later. Apparently, there was a person who I've known, and I've heard their side of the story, who was the geopolitical operations person inside of Microsoft, who dealt with all sorts of different things that could have geopolitical impact. And so that person sounded the alarm to the powers that be at Microsoft, and they didn't listen to that person. So for some reason, the brass there never got around to making a hardcore decision on that until it came to a head with only basically weeks to go in Halo 2's production. So that was a huge mistake on the corporation side, Microsoft's. I mean, if they'd listened to that person right from the beginning and said during pre-production, hey, we need you guys to change the name of this character, we a couple of us might have said, well, that's stupid or whatever, but we would have changed it. That would have been fine, especially if somebody had explained to us that this could insult a swath of people in other countries. You don't want to, it's like the Chevy Nova, which means no go in Spanish. So it's a car that means no go in Spanish, apparently. So it's one of those things where, this is why you have geopolitical people. Bungie, starts as a small little company in Chicago. We're making games that we like to play. Turns out a lot of people like to play them. Ship Halo 1 with sort of that same can-do attitude. Nobody was really expecting much from us. So we understood that by the time we're making Halo 2, the expectations had grown. We had a geopolitical market. And so it might have been difficult for us to accept it, but we would have, especially at an earlier stage.
Right.
But what it also showed to me was that this is just the beginning. There's going to be way more close policing of, decisions that used to just seem like internal creative decisions, and those are going to be looked at with a magnifying lens. And I think that's eventually I think that led to Gamergate. It took another few years before Gamergate happened, but I think that's why that Gamergate happened. And now I think it's the same thing. I think Gamergate 2. Are we calling it Gamergate 2?
I think it. Yeah. I think that's pretty accurate. I don't know. Barry, you think that's right? Gamergate 2. Yeah. The Reckoning, or Electric Boogaloo, or whatever. Right.
Electric Boogaloo.
It's the same thing, but.
Sure.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's fascinating stuff. Love it, and you're probably right. Just the slow slide down the political correctness scale is sad. I will personally give you a high five if you subscribe. I will not actually give you a high five if you subscribe.